Today we're going to be talking a little bit about health checks, right? And we're going to be talking about health checks, what a healthy Cin7 looks like, what are some of the things that you should look out for. I have a couple amazing people from Fiskal on the team to help us talk about that. We're having a co-webinar with them because, they have some great information to share, as do I have some great information to share for you all. So I hope you're excited about it. Essentially, like I said, what we're going to be talking about is essentially just what a healthy Cin7 looks like. We're going to talk about some of those red flags, talk about what health checks are, some of the things you want to think about looking for in health checks, some of those preventative practices, and just a few details around that. Our goal is to allow you all to leave this webinar with just a little bit more of information on how to handle these certain situations, some of the things that you can do in your own account, and then also when you might need to seek that expert help and when you might need to seek a team like Fiskal to come in and help you with your health checks or help you improve your practices to improve the health of your Cin7. And so today's speakers, myself, Caleb Carter, Senior Partner Enablement Manager at Cin7. You all have likely seen me on these before. And so welcome back to everyone that I've seen some familiar faces on the attendees list. We also have Pierre from Fiskal, the co-founder at Fiskal, and we also have Juandré from Fiskal, the head systems lead, here to talk to us a little bit. And just a little bit about Fiskal. Look, Fiskal is one of our most outstanding partners, right? They've won awards at our summit for multiple years in a row, and they just have so many good client stories. I've worked with them on multiple clients that love working with them, and they have a lot of great experience with Cin7 Core and have really done a great job in the partnership, and I'm honored to have them here. I'll hand it over to you, Pierre, just to say a little bit, a few words about you all at Fiskal and what you all do, um, and how you
Yeah,
all
for
help
sure.
clients.
Thanks for that kind words, Caleb. That's very nice of you. Um, from our side, I mean, this slide is pretty self-explanatory, but I mean, I think we've been working with Cin7 now for almost a decade. Before it was called Cin7, right, when it was still called Deer Systems. So just have a lot of experience, a lot of time. I think we all have our 10,000 hours. Who was that? I think it's Malcolm Gladwell's 10,000 hour theory, right? So I think a lot of us have spent a lot of time in the system and um, yeah, collective group of individuals that focuses on Cin7. As a company, we've where before we fiddled with other IMSs. Today we only deal with Cin7 Core, so that focus and that innovation has really paid dividends. So excited to add value to this and see where this leads.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Absolutely. I love working with everybody on the Fiscal team.
Thank you.
You all have a fantastic team and highly recommend anybody work with you all. But for today, just getting a little bit of information from y'all for the topics, and just a brief run through of the topics, right? What are we going to go through? What's the flow going to be? We're going to start out by talking just what a healthy Cin7 looks like, talk about some of those issues you might see, some of those red flags, especially after the peak season, right? That's why we had this webinar at this time. A lot of situations with client accounts, especially after the holiday rush, is that, you come up and you're like, man, you might have had a bad holiday season. It might have been a really stressful holiday season for your business. Maybe you missed some orders. Maybe you had some integration issues. Maybe you don't know what issues you have next. And that's maybe why you're coming here to find out about some of those things. And then once you find those issues, how can you perform some of these health checks? How frequently should you perform some of these health checks? Should you be thinking about when you were thinking about those health checks? And so those are some of the things we're going to go ahead and talk about today. So the first thing we're going to talk about is just what does a healthy Cin7 look like? So I'll start with you, Pierre, and your short few words. What do you think of as a healthy Cin7 account? What does that look like in your mind?
Yeah, sure. Let me open the floor with this one. Caleb, the way I think about it is slightly different because it's pretty ironic. I don't measure a healthy Cin7. within Cin7, right? As we know, Cin7 is actually just the conduit where the sales data is flowing through from our sales channel through Cin7 and entering our accounting software, whether that's QBO or Xero. So the way I think about a healthy Cin7 is looking at my data within my accounting software. So if my sales are tying up with my sales channels, my COGS are consistent, my GP is consistent, uh, my clearing accounts are clean, and on the back, my inventory is actually reconciling with my physical inventory in Cin7, or whether that's in a 3PL or wherever. That's how I measure a healthy Cin7. Then I know the data is flowing through correctly. Yeah, so that's how I think about a healthy Cin7.
Yeah, Cin7's connected to a lot of things. So we want to make sure those integrations in those systems that Cin7's connected to are getting the same data that
Mhm.
Cin7 has, so we can make sure that everything is clean. Juandré, do you have any other pieces to add on what you think a healthy Cin7 looks like?
Um, I don't want to add too much
Sure.
right now because obviously Pierre's on the accounting side approaching that, so he looks at the end result. But for me, a healthy Cin7 would be like no sync errors between the different integrations, right? Just looking at the basics, if all your stock actually has a unit cost or a value, those types of things, amount of duplicates, when last was fulfillments done, for example, or purchase orders actually completed fully. That's mostly the indicators I look for to see if it's a healthy Cin7 or not.
Perfect. Yeah, absolutely. Completely agree with all those topics right there. And yeah, a healthy Cin7 is, it can change for a lot of people, but in reality, kind of what I'm hearing is, you want to make sure that the numbers you're seeing in Cin7, the inventory your numbers you're seeing, or the COGS numbers you're seeing, or whatever you're getting out of there is showing up in other systems. You're not seeing as many integration issues, and things just feel cleaner in a way, I guess, when you're looking at it from the outside point of view. And so,
Yeah, I mean, on that note, Caleb, I just want to
yeah,
add there's definitely levels in it, and I feel like sometimes our Office in Seven is just at the start when clients interact with Cin7, right? When they actually are embedded within Cin7, they actually, like Juandré mentioned, raising the purchase order, receiving it. So actually just doing that change management from where they were and now actually using the system, and not, yeah, basically getting their hands dirty within the system. For a lot of
yeah.
clients, that's the starting point.
It's a big step. It's a big step for
Mm,
sure. Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Well, maybe getting a little bit more specific, let's talk about some of those red flags that you might see. Like, what are those issues that you might identify that you might look out for? And we can either go into like integration issues with accounting integration issues, e-commerce integration issues, issues you might see just directly inside of Cin7 Core. So I guess this time I'll start with you, Andre. Like, what issues do you typically look for? What red flags do you usually sound your alarm, right? To where like, hey, this is maybe something to look out for, or where do you look?
Yeah, so I usually start off with like the normal business cycle, like Pierre alluded to before, right? So first off is just purchase order side, right? So completeness of purchase orders, all purchase orders actually in? That's the biggest hurdle usually. Secondly is are they actually completed to the stages that they are actually physically completed to, right? So invoiced, are we expecting the stock to come in? Has it been received and it's hasn't have a unit cost allocated to it yet? So those types of stages. I then usually then move on to any like stock movements or stock transformations. So I look into assemblies, right? Are
Right.
assemblies actually set up correctly? Are we consuming the right type of goods? Are we actually completing them in time? And then after that would be the stock transfers to all the different locations, right? So stock moving through your business, where are they going through to the different sales channels? How are you treating that? And then the final one would obviously be the sales side for me. So from e-commerce channels, are all of our data actually complete in the first place, right? And then two, is it actually reflective of where it is actually? So yeah, Pierre, I know you must probably have a couple of things to say about like the accounting side of sales and COGS
mm,
and looking at
yes,
those.
yes. I'm gonna die on this hill about the COGS. I mean, if I look at my finances, I'll have a very good idea where the issues are. So if we speak about post-peak season red flags, if your GP margin should be, I don't know, 70%, and all of a sudden it's 40, you know you've got an issue, right? So and the same with inventory. If you know you've got $1 million worth of stock, but your balance sheet says 400 or 2 million, there's an issue, right? So that's from accounting perspective, I'm always going to go have a look at my accounting data. But from a Cin7 perspective, I'll probably look at my integration screen. So I'll look how many sync errors are there. To Juandré's point, how many open POs do I have? How many open POs older than 3 months? Right. And then the inverse on the sales side, exactly the same. It's like, has my sales order been fulfilled? Because we know if it hasn't been shipped, it's not triggering cost of sales. So just those basics.
Yeah, no, I like it. I love it. I love it. To where, Juandré, you're talking about, you start from the purchase side and go all the way through the process of the inventory cycle. So you have an actual process around that. And I mean, absolutely making sure that those accounting issues or accounting integration key points are there, right? You want to make sure that the COGS is there and the COGS is properly there. You want to make sure the sales is properly there. You want to make sure things are properly closing out. Um, Absolutely. And in terms of just kind of when you're looking for those red flags, I'm curious, are there any are there any reports you look at, or are there any list pages you look at, or are there any particular areas of the system that you like? Maybe some of like the top two or three areas of the system that you look at. Um, well, we started with you, Andre, last time, so we'll start with you, Pierre, this time. Like, what are a couple maybe reports, areas in the system, places you might typically check if you're looking for particular issues in clients' accounts?
Yeah, so we do a health check on a monthly basis that summarizes a lot of the reports. But I mean, the one, if I have to put all my chips on one report, it's probably that, what's it, financial transactions versus stock on hand report.
Yep, yep.
Yeah, that
I love
report
that one.
is very handy. So that's the one I would go to. What about you, John Ray?
Yeah, so if I was on a day-to-day basis operationally involved at the business, I would go to the purchase side, right? Flick through the different filters. You'll see on the purchase side there's like awaiting payment, awaiting delivery. Just flick through those, making sure that all of them are up to date. Like Pierre alluded to earlier, no, nothing older than 3 months, for example. That's like a really easy, quick win, right?
Mm,
If you are sure that all of your stock is in Cin7, you can kind of make sure that your unit cost is also correct, right? It'll leave gaps and so on. And then all of your other issues can very often just be like masked with stock transfers and stock adjustments and stock takes, and you don't really know where the issue like resulted from.
mm,
And then sales side as well. So also just the filters at the top, flick through them, see if you can maybe add, there's quite nice filters. So you can configure it that it's per sales channel, for example, or per B2B orders. Handle them individually, right? So some simple logic that you can apply is if it's a point of sale, the likelihood of it being fulfilled is extremely high, right? So if it's in your system, not fulfilled, right? Red flag immediately.
mm.
Need to have a look at like what actually happened to the stock. Why don't we have enough? Why don't they sync through? So that would be the quick and easy wins. From a reporting side, I agree with Pierre. Transactions versus stock on hand report is probably the handiest one around if you have anything accrual set up or manufacturing or assemblies. So if there's any differences between landed cost or your actual invoices or the units that you receive, it'll just quickly highlight there, and those directly influence your books, right? So if you're trying to reconcile what your inventory balance in your book should be, that's a quick and easy one that you can work back from. So that would be the two. If I could add two other ones, if we're talking about reports,
Please, let's go.
Go for
it would
gold.
most probably be the goods received versus invoiced report. That's another one. So that purely is just quantities, right? So if you've been invoiced 1,000, right, you most probably need to receive 1,000. If there isn't, that's usually the thing clients don't do, is there needs to be a credit note, right? We need to ask for a refund. We're expecting something back from a supplier that'll impact our unit cost again and our actually unit valuations. So that's on the purchase side, and then on this on the sales side, the fulfillment and the payment details report. Those two are my usual go-tos. One of the key columns I add in there is the customer reference field. So it just makes it really easy. You can pull a report from Shopify. You can look at the fulfillment status, payment status, have a quick look, see if there's a difference between the two integrations, and just go through the whole list. Just clean them up, make sure that all of those are up to date. And then the key thing there is if they're up to date, you reduce the lag between your Cin7 and your Shopify, right? So availability syncing through, no one's rushing around trying to catch up with sales, right? So you're actually showing on the website what you have available to sell, right? And just moving through those motions, yeah.
And
Nice.
I'm really glad I recorded that answer, my friend. That was a
Yeah.
fantastic answer,
It's
dude.
like,
I hope everybody that is listening took some really good notes there. I mean, because you said a lot of really good things, right? I mean, Pierre, the stock on hand versus financial transactions report. I've actually myself worked with partners and clients to solve a whole bunch of issues and find, not just solve a bunch of issues, but find a bunch of issues. And not particularly issues that came about by Cin7, but a lot of times they're process issues, right? Sometimes people don't understand, like you have to receive in the same area that you invoiced. What can happen if that doesn't work out? And making sure that those two transactions match. And so I've used that report to help find a couple issues, especially when people are like, "Hey, my inventory movements report is not matching with my balance sheet," and that's a very common thing that people see. And those issues can be resolved or found by just looking at a report like that or the goods received not invoiced. I loved what you said about the fulfillment details in the payment details report on the sales side. Are those a couple of things that you might look at for sales orders that might not match as much? And I really liked what you said on, looking for adjustments, because something I find is a lot of times clients will put in adjustments to fix issues, but that's not really solving the issue, right?
mm,
A lot of times, if you're making an adjustment, that means that what you have in Cin7 does not match what you have in your warehouse or what your physical stock looks like. And that means there's something going on, right? Maybe there's
correct.
orders that aren't being shipped. Maybe there's purchases that aren't being received properly. Maybe there's some sort of manufacturing, assembly, or production order issues that are going on that are not fully completing out the transaction. And I typically will walk into accounts and people just make adjustments to fix it. Oh, we'll worry about it later.
Mm,
Um, and so I think that's a really big thing to look at sometimes. It's like, how many adjustments is this account making and how frequently are they making adjustments? And then do they have reasons behind these adjustments? Like, are people actually taking things out of stock? Are these actual adjustments, or are we just trying to true up the inventory value? And also what you mentioned on open orders, that's another common thing I find too. Looking through those, especially the sales list filters, we have really good sales list filters. We have a couple on the purchase one too. But you'll find some clients will come about and they will have a ton of orders that just haven't been received, haven't been fully invoiced, haven't been fully fulfilled, and maybe they're orders from a year and a half ago. Maybe they still have an open on order status, or maybe they're counting your availability, and so they're messing with your availability and your on order numbers, which can mess with your reordering numbers, which can be a little bit of a domino effect. So those are probably some really great things to look for, and I really appreciated that answer there. It was a
mm.
fantastic one. Fantastic one. And
Caleb,
yes,
I want to add one,
go
speaking
for it.
about about adjustments, because
Pierre got
um,
jealous. He wanted to
yeah, I
ask
got
something
jealous.
good.
Juandré ripped it all, and I was like, wow, what can I add? But again, from the accounting side, just something to consider is as soon as you do or make an adjustment within your in your accounting software, right? You do a manual journal. You've already you've already lost, right? Because the system between Cin7 and your accounting software works out, but as soon as you intervene and you manually create something, so for example, you create more COGS in a month because your GP margin's off, then you've lost. You'll never reconcile again. So it's really important to get it right from the start and not to do manual adjustments because the system will do what it has to. You just need to follow the right processes.
Right. Right. Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, you want to make sure you're following the correct process. You want to make sure you're
Mm,
doing things correctly, not just, slapping, I don't even want to say a band-aid on the problem, but just
yeah.
like trying to do a quick fix, which
Mm,
in all life scenarios never really works out, right? And I guess we've been talking a little bit about some of the areas you check for health checks, and you mentioned this a little bit, Pierre, when you said you do a lot of monthly health checks with your clients. Is monthly the typically how frequently you'll do these sorts of things? Is that like the period in which you recommend to all your clients? Does it maybe change differently for some clients? Is it maybe more frequently for certain situations or less frequently for certain situations? What's your perspective on how frequently you should be checking up in your Cin7?
mm. Yeah, I'm sounding a bit like a broken record, but if we think about closing our financials, we close our books, right, every, 10 to 15th of the month. You probably want to be doing that prior to closing your books, right? So that's when I'll do my health assessment. So yes, monthly basis. I mean, I can maybe imagine on a quarterly basis if you're really not complex and things are working out. But I can also imagine maybe doing it on like a bi-weekly basis if we've got a lot of transactions flowing through because it's sales period and we want to make sure that we're not overselling or anything in that line of thought. So I can play it both ways, but the rule of thumb, I would say, is monthly.
Yeah, I think before the financial close makes a lot of sense.
Mm,
And I mean, you maybe you do sound like a broken record, but in reality, people are using a system like Cin7 to help with their financials, right? Their inventory
correct.
financials, which is something that's
Yeah.
very hard to track. And so
Mm.
it's a very key thing. Juandré, do you have anything to add in there, kind of, and how frequently you might see reasons to do health checks?
Yes, yes. So I actually see health checks in two different ways, right? So health checks, like going through those reports, pending POs, pending SOs, all of those are just your early warning indicators, right? That's like, hey, we need to clear these before we can even start with month end, like thinking about it, right? So making sure that all those POs and so on are actually correct, right? I see it as a second part, the actual reconciliation between your accounting software and then Cin7, right? Then making sure all sales tie up, right? Sales channel versus Cin7 versus your accounting software, or then your balance sheet items and going through that. So I usually think about it as two. So at Fiskal, we have like two deadlines. Usually the first one is like around the 5th of the month, right? Then it's all teams action go. They just focus on trying to clear everything that they can. And then later on, after the month, then it's a full recon, right? And then you can report to the team, hey, listen, yeah, we messed up on these items. Like you can start highlighting in your management account the key items that you've missed or that you need to improve on, or maybe some historical thing that came through, right? But up until that point, you kind of just flying blind. And you're going to
Yeah.
deal with 1,000 items where you could just highlight five and say, hey guys,
Mm.
these are the key items. So yeah, yeah,
And the idea of after you did the Cin7 health check, exactly, then you do the audit or the reconciliation between the two. But then the idea is to feed back and essentially go fix the processes that created the mess. So whoever is the user on that specific use case then needs to get a standard operating procedure and they need to get the right process. Someone needs to define to them, you did this the wrong way. This is how you are supposed to do it. So that next month comes around, we're dealing with less errors. And so we typically see a decrease in the amount of errors the more we, in terms of a timeline. So at the start, there's a lot of errors, but then you fix the processes as you spend more time with the client or they become better with the system. And those reconciliation errors should start to decrease and come down.
Yeah,
yeah.
absolutely.
So
Absolutely.
yeah, so Yeah, last thing I wanted to add is obviously on those reports and those health check reports, right? I think the key item there is that it's an action-driven item, right? So have a column there, make a comment, why did it actually occur, right? It's always, if it's recurring, you can always guarantee that it's some sort of setup issue, right? Then you know like
Mhm.
someone messed up somewhere and you need to fix it. And then the good thing is it's a quick toggle and then half of your pain points gone, right? And then the other ones is small micro process improvements that just need to be tweaked and actually been actioned every month.
Yeah, absolutely. This sounds kind of like I'm at my own doctor's or dentist office or something like that, where it's like, oh, you got it. These are some fixes, and then over time, it gets better and better, right? And
Yeah.
those health checks become easier over time. Um, they get maybe less frequent as you get more used to the system. And they're more so just there to make sure that things don't go awry.
Mm.
And I love that. I love that answer. It can change, but I think monthly is a really good starting point, because typically people will close the books monthly, and that's a really good starting place. But maybe even more frequently if you're just coming off a really messed up system, I guess, if you will, that needs to be improved, or processes that need to be improved, and you want to make sure those are staying on track. And so I guess my last question here for the both of you is, we've given some really good information on how clients can go in, or partners can go in for their clients, and they can do a little bit of a health check, right? They can go in and they can check a couple of these reports, and they can see if where maybe there's open orders, where maybe some of the financial reports don't tie up. Um, when would you recommend that somebody would need to come seek expert help, right? When does it like, this is too much for me. I need an additional partner like Fiskal on my team to help me sort everything out and get everything back on track. Pierre, when would you say that point in time comes?
Yeah, Caleb. So I'm going to make the assumption that you have the basics and the foundation strong, right? Because in most cases, it's getting someone just to that point. So I would say 70% of clients that we work with, it's just to get them to where everything that we just spoke about is ready and configured, right? The data is accurate. But in a lot of that cases, it is about best practices. How do we do it, or how do we um, stretch the system so that we can get to the specific results that we want. But to answer your question, I think it's if you want to utilize more of the modules that Cin7 has, right? So there's amazing modules that you can get to after you nail the foundation, like the material requirements planning, the demand forecasting. Maybe utilize the B2B portal. There's so much more that you can do after you've nailed the basics, right? So I think in that case. So I'll just summarize it by saying, if you want to unlock more value from the system, there's obviously a lot of data within it. So reporting, trying to get segments, channels, gaining insights to make better decisions. So firstly, nail the basics, get the foundation strong. So in a lot of cases, they need expert help with that. But then after that, um, yeah, getting value from the system that they actually invested into.
Definitely. Usually it's value that they've already paid for, right? And might
Exactly.
already be
Now
paying
start
for, but
using
they're
it.
just not. Exactly.
Mm,
Exactly. Chandra, do you have anything to add there?
Yeah, so I would think on again making the assumption that they've nailed the basics right is the edge case solutions, right? So they like integration limitation, right? You don't understand that there's a timing delay between your Shopify and Cin7, for example, or you're trying to consolidate and you don't really know what's the other side of things, like what will most probably fall on the floor. You need to clean up. What's the things to be on the lookout for, right? So trying to have someone that has experience in those edge cases, right, that can quickly just guide you and saying like, hey, this is most probably the best course for you to take
mm,
instead of just bumping into the same issues over and over and over again, and not really understanding at a fundamental level like why it's happening, um, is a great
mm.
place for approaching Fiskal.
Yeah,
Perfect.
there's an architecture part of this, Caleb. I know we need to wrap up, but at the start, there's also a specific architecture of how you get the system to essentially do what, well, that fits your business model. So setting it up and understanding the limitations, and then to Juandré's point, how you configure those integrations that it fits your business model. There's definitely some, some experience that plays into that. So I would throw that into that as well.
Perfect, perfect. And if anybody has any questions that are from this webinar, feel free to just throw them in while I'm saying my last statements because I know we're getting to time. But I mean, I will just come back off that answer. Like, yeah, there's a lot of situations where clients might see issues, but they not might not know how to approach them or what the best way to approach them is to eliminate those issues. And that's definitely a point in time where if you want to change your process, you want to update your processes. And also, like you said, Pierre, if you want to evolve your processes, right? You want to use more tools in the system to get more out of the system. Like I said, typically value that you're already paying for. A lot of people don't even know that they're already paying for the MRP. And how much value they can get out of it, or just other systems. Cin7 is built to scale with you when you're adding sales channels and when you're adding more complexity to your business. And so those are definitely times when you might want to seek out an expert, especially if you are unsure of how to go about these situations or how to approach fixing your system or evolving your system. So for anybody listening on the recording or on here, please do reach out to Fiskal if you ever have, any questions about performing your health checks, or if you just want to learn how to better use Cin7 or evolve your processes on Cin7. They've helped many clients. I've talked to many clients that they have been a great part of the story in. They have a good amount of customer stories with us too. If you want to check them out on the site, and they are also on our partner directory if you want to check them out on there as well. And I'm sure, if you wanted to just reach out to Pierre or Juandré, they might be open for it too. I'll let you say a couple last words if you want to, Pierre, but I mean, that's pretty much all I wanted to go for today.
Thanks, Caleb. No, thanks for involving us in this. This has been great. Yeah, like any good analogy, it's like we're driving a car and the car needs servicing, right? That analogy you gave about the dentist is actually just telling you remember to floss, and
Yes.
you like I'm doing everything except flossing every day, and I know that's the one thing that will actually deliver the result. So yeah, in the Cin7 case, it's just doing the basics right. But
Right.
anyway, thanks for having us. It was great speaking with you. We know you also have a wealth of knowledge, so we always like engaging with you on specific topics.
I appreciate it. I appreciate it. Well, take care, everyone. Thanks, and have a great rest of your day, great rest of your week. Bye, everyone.